Magandang araw sa lahat. Welcome to Paglulunsad 2020, the first virtual book launch of the University of the Philippines Press. I'm UP Press Deputy Director Jerry Los Baños. During this event, we will be launching 22 titles published by the press in the year 2020. We will be joined shortly by the authors, editors, and contributors who helped make these works possible. To begin the program, please welcome UP Press Director Dr. J. Neil Garcia, who will deliver the opening remarks.
A pleasant day to all our viewers. I welcome you all to the very first online Paglulunsad of titles published by the University of the Philippines Press. For my opening remarks, I would like to share with you thoughts that have been occasioned by a webinar organized by the National Book Development Board sometime last month. In that webinar, directors of several university presses were asked to speak about future post-pandemic trends in academic publishing in the country. We were asked to do this even as the pandemic's end is not exactly certain as to when, although the how at this point in time seems clear enough, through mass vaccination and the achievement of herd protection among citizens here and everywhere else. Of course, we cannot think of an equal playing field and therefore of a standard timeline as far as any of this is concerned. Among many other lessons, what the ongoing global health crisis has reminded us is just how deep and vast are the chasms of inequities inside and among populations and countries, even as it has also driven home the point of how equal we ultimately are in our mortal fate, in the privations and the finitudes, as well as the responsibilities and affordances of our shared and imperiled world. More than a year into varying degrees of lockdown, what's somewhat clear also is the shift toward blended forms of instruction, especially in the tertiary and graduate levels, not just in our country but also globally. Whatever the post-pandemic scenario, what will clearly endure is the value of books, print or electronic, with scholarship and literary creativity most likely not experiencing a diminishment but actually possibly a growth, in light precisely of the globally transformed situation. As we have already seen, this is a situation that affords and will most likely continue to afford academics and creative writers a lot more downtime to commit themselves to research and writing projects. This is borne out by the fact that evaluation of newly submitted manuscripts is always ongoing at the UP Press. Nowadays, we have around 15 manuscripts being internally and externally vetted at any one time. The UP Press is the official publishing house of our country's one and only national university. Knowledge production is one of UP's most important mandates. The dissemination of this knowledge, literary and academic in book form, will be a task that its publishing house will need to continue to carry out, whatever the public health situation. Allow me to report that the operations of the UP Press have been fairly regular across these pandemical months. The editorial department has been working from home in the main, while the members of our administrative staff report rotationally. We have not shifted our marketing operations completely online. However, our dedicated stores inside the Shopee and Lazada platforms are now supplementing our income from our own online shop. Remote sales have been making up for the shortfall in direct sales and seeing us through these financially challenging months. As for editorial productivity, let our book launching today tell the story. Despite the odds, we published 29 titles in 2020, including the reprints. On the other hand, we are currently processing more than 50 titles, with around 34 set to be published within the year. Para-publishing activities have of course become immensely important. I had once referred to these as our varied efforts to give our books a social life, through which they may be made to transcend their physical realities as objects and become the socially transformative and possibly immortal things that we in the humanities like to call texts. Over the last year, our authors have been asked to participate in webinars, online book forums, podcasts, and literary readings. Needless to say, we see these online affairs as excellent opportunities to market our titles, aside from being occasions for intellectual exchange. While we and the other university presses are arguably now all needing to engage in e-commerce to sell our books, e-publishing is something else altogether. My sense is that the educationally blended future will not necessarily see more books migrating from the print to the digital format, even as more and more learning materials will be sourced multimedially by educators. Moreover, it is likely that such materials, including books, will emerge out of collaborations across disciplines in response precisely to the increasing intersectionality of our present-day lives. Recent studies reveal that, globally, the e-book bubble has pretty much burst. The printed book is still the preferred format by readers worldwide. Nonetheless, I believe it is likely that the UP Press will need to resume its limited line of carefully selected e-book titles, which indeed it used to have in partnership with an all-Filipino digital publishing firm. This will help make our books available to our students through the university's digital library system. At this point, allow me to close by sharing with you what I believe to be two of the most important and telling features of the academic titles that the UP Press has been inclined to publish since it was established in 1965. I do this because I feel, or at least I hope, that UP Press books will continue to profess these qualities in the foreseeable future, especially since the ongoing public health crisis has clarified even further the importance of locally grounded and urgently relevant knowledge. The first feature has something to do with the issue of address. It may not be easily apparent at the outset, but the fact is that all texts have an implicit reader who is the addressee of the monologue or narration that the author of any book is overtly or covertly carrying out. This is simply unavoidable and holds true even when the book in question is scholarly rather than literary. Obviously, because they're written by homegrown scholars and writers, our books are warmly and even pointedly speaking to a Filipino readership, whom they do not alienate. Thus, unlike many reprints of foreign-authored books about our country, they tend to sell relatively well in the local market. The second feature has something to do with perspective, in particular, a critical nationalist perspective which I feel most of the books that we have been publishing directly or indirectly espouse. To my mind, while politically invested in the concept as well as in the reality of the Filipino nation, critical nationalism is entirely wary of institutional nationalism and criticizes it for its many excesses. Among other things, it recognizes the fact that this discourse is produced and championed by our country's elite, whose interests it serves and whose bourgeois and heteronormative narrative it tells, at the expense of subaltern narratives coming from marginalized subjects. Also, critical nationalism is careful to avoid the myth-making tendencies of any institutional nativist project, which is animated by the desire to still be recognized by the colonial center, whose approval it continues to crave. Finally, critical nationalism situates the issue of cultural production within unequal macro relations, which themselves constitute a specific modality of an expansionist, now unctuously called global capitalism. Needless to say, the salience of the class question, alongside other questions of inequality, remains integral to the critique that critical nationalist accounts must offer. Given the fact that the unfinished pandemic has served to clarify the violent cleavages in our lives as air-dependent creatures on this planet, who do not enjoy an equal share of its resources, and for whom the only true commonality is the body's all too real and all too ordinary fragility, The hope that our university's scholars, researchers, and writers will continue to be attuned to the question of injustice and inequality in our country and in the world at large, and will endeavor to speak to our people and their needs in their works, to me proves comforting and consoling enough. Again, I welcome you all to our digital launch. On behalf of the UP Press and of the university, I would like to congratulate and thank all our authors for entrusting their books to our care. New as it is for us, we put together this special Paglulunsad primarily for you, as we know it is an important rite of passage that all your books deserve and that the UP Press is only too happy to organize. Suffice it to say that every book is a cause for celebration, for it is nothing if not an ethical bequest, an opportunity to not only broaden knowledge and understanding, but also to cultivate imagination and deepen its ability to occasion more and more profound forms of empathy among all of us. This is something that we need now more than ever, when so many in our country and in our world are suffering and need our compassionate attention and care. I hope you enjoy the rest of our program. A pleasant day to everyone. Maraming salamat po.
Our first title is A History of the University of the Philippines, Volume 1, 1908 to 1943 by Leonora M. Pautagana and Rosario Cruz Lucero. Joining us today is one of the authors, Dr. Leonora Pautagana. She is Associate Professor of Literature at the Department of Humanities, UP Los Baños. She has a PhD in Comparative Literature from UP Diliman and has written articles on Philippine historical novels and contemporary fiction by women. She co-wrote At the Helm of UP, Presidential Accents, and contributed articles to UPLB 100 Years in the Science and Nature City. She is currently on her third term as Chair of the Department of Humanities. Let us welcome Dr. Pautagana.
I'm Leonora Pautagana from the Department of Humanities, UPLB, and I'm one of the authors of this 3-volume series, A History of the University of the Philippines, edited by Dr. Rosario Cruz Lucero. As Ma'am Chari notes in her preface to the series, this history is written in the style of a narrative literary essay, and it highlights the responses of the UP community, the students, faculty, alumni, and other personnel to the various events of its time. As former UP Diliman Chancellor Dr. Michael Tan notes in his own preface, this volume is crucial in reminding us to remember not only the top stories of the nation, but also those of our national university.
Our next title is The Face of Urban Poverty in the Cinema of Broca by Veronica L. Isla. Dr. Isla is a full-time faculty member of the University of Asia and the Pacific and currently the Program Director of the School of Communications, Media, and Entertainment Management Program. Her dissertation titled Representations of the Urban Poor in Lino Broca Films received the Best Dissertation Award and the Gloria Feliciano Award from the College of Mass Communications in UP Diliman. Let us welcome the author, Veronica Isla.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Isla. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you some reasons why this book is so relevant. First, it features not just my voice but also the voices of highly respected personalities in the fields of cinema, literature, and theater. Second, it reminds us not to be complacent in the face of persistent poverty, social injustice, and corruption in our country. Third, it will help the young audiences to better appreciate the works of present-day Filipino filmmakers and inspire a new generation of filmmakers. Lastly, it uncovers why Broca has been praised for using cinema as a vehicle for social commentary in one hand and has been accused of failing to be truly revolutionary and progressive in its representations on the other. Again, thank you, and I hope you add this to your collection of books on cinema.
Research and Realities, Politics in the Third World, by Dr. Maria Lourdes G. Rebolida. The author is a retired faculty member of the Department of Political Science, College of Social Sciences and Philosophy in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She earned her Doctor of Public Administration degree also from UP Diliman. Please welcome Dr. Rebolida.
I am Maria Lourdes Rebolida, retired faculty at the University of the Philippines, Department of Political Science. The 8 articles in this volume present the research elements and research methodologies appropriately selected by the authors. The synoptic chart presents the key elements in each of the articles. These are useful teaching and learning materials for a research course in the social sciences and for any subject or content course that deal with issues of globalization, migration, indigenous peoples' rights, peasant movement, the military, and electoral politics. I would like to thank the authors of the articles for their contribution in this volume.
A Timeline of Mindanao Disasters by Alfredo Mahar A. Lagmay and Maria Criseldo B. Baldago. Joining us today is one of the authors, Ms. Baldago. She is a University Research Associate at the National Institute of Geological Sciences, or NIGS. A graduate of the Bachelor of Science in Geology, she is currently pursuing her master's degree in NIGS. Please welcome Ms. Baldago.
Hello everyone, my name is Maria Criseldo Baldago. I am a researcher at the National Institute of Geological Sciences and a graduate student under Dr. Mahar Lagmay. Our book, A Timeline of Mindanao Disasters, attempts to compile disaster events caused by natural hazards in recorded history in Mindanao. The deadliest calamities occur in intervals of decades or even centuries. Without a means of recording these events, younger generations tend to forget them. Building a culture of safety and disaster preparedness would contribute to the overall unhampered development in Mindanao. This will require long-term action through community engagement, such as participating in emergency drills, making reliable hazard maps openly available, and of course, disaster risk education and awareness building.
Securing a Continuum of Care, The Challenges of a Fragmented Health Sector by Carlo Erwin Panelo, Orville Jose Solot, Rebecca Ramos, and Alejandro Herin. Joining us today is one of the authors, Dr. Carlo Panelo. He is an associate professor of the Department of Clinical Epidemiology of the College of Medicine, UP, Manila. At the time of the writing of this book, he was Chief of Party of the Health Policy Development Program, a USAID-funded policy project supporting the Department of Health and PhilHealth in improving family planning and TB outcomes under universal health care. Dr. Panelo finished his Doctor of Medicine and Master's in Economics degrees both from the University of the Philippines. He is also a Nippon Foundation Asian Public Intellectual Fellow. Please welcome Dr. Panelo.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. I'm Dr. Carlo Erwin A. Panelo of the UP College of Medicine and the author of the book Securing a Continuum of Care, The Challenge of a Fragmented Health Sector. The book tells the story of the Philippine health system over the past 3 decades. Apart from describing its strengths and weaknesses, the book also provides insights on how we can make our health system more inclusive and effective, especially as we try to overcome this pandemic and move on to our dream of universal healthcare. We recommend this book not only to policymakers and scholars of health system studies, but to anyone who actually wants to learn how healthcare is delivered and financed in the Philippines. On behalf of my colleagues, we would like to thank the United States Agency for International Development, the UPCON Foundation, the Department of Health, the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, and the University of the Philippines Press for making this book a reality.
The Ruins of Pinagbayanan, a photo essay on the archaeology of a late 19th century Philippine town by Grace Barreto Tesoro. Dr. Tesoro is a professor at the University of the Philippines Archaeological Studies program. In 2016, the UP Press published their groundbreaking book, Himlayan, Pantayon, Camposanto, Cementerio, Exploring Philippine Cemeteries. Let us welcome the author, Dr. Grace Barreto Tesoro.
Hi, I am Grace Barreto Tesoro and the author of the book, The Ruins of Pinagbayanan. This photo essay book shares the results of the excavations in San Juan, Batangas. With teams from the UP Archaeological Studies program, we excavated 2 stone-based houses and the old church complex. 10 visual artists created artworks that were inspired by the excavations. The book aims to reach non-specialists so that they can experience the joys of archaeology through the photos and the artworks.
Our next title is When Bridges Are Down, Mountains Too Far by Hemino H. Abad. Dr. Abad, University Professor Emeritus of Literature and Creative Writing, is a poet, fictionist, and literary critic and historian with various honors and awards. He obtained his PhD in English at the University of Chicago in 1970 and continues to teach at UP, where he served as Secretary of the University, Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Director of the UP Creative Writing Center, which is now an institute. Please welcome Dr. Abad.
No matter what troubles there are in your life, you must not lose heart. You must keep a kind of cheer of spirit. Never give up. When bridges are down and there is some crisis you are running away from, you would like to go to the mountain where you might be safe. Bridges are down, but mountains are too far. And bridges are down. You can go flee to the mountain. You cannot. The bridges are down. But don't lose heart. That's the whole point.
A Richness of Embarrassments and Other Easy Essays by Butch Dalisay. Dr. Dalisay has published over 40 books of stories, plays, and essays, with 6 of those books receiving the National Book Award from the Manila Critics Circle. More than 20 of his screenplays have also been produced. In 1998, he was named to the CCP Centennial Honors for the Arts List. He taught English and Creative Writing as a full professor at UP, where he served as chairman of the English Department, director of the UP Institute of Creative Writing, and vice president for public affairs. He retired from UP in 2019 and was appointed professor emeritus shortly after. Please welcome Dr. Jose Butch Dalisay Jr.
Hi there. I'm Butch Dalisay, the author of A Richness of Embarrassments and Other Easy Essays, which is a collection of about 110 funny essays, at least I think they're funny, which I hope will help you relax in these very stressful times.
iJournalist and Other Newsroom Introspections by Joel Pablo Salud. Mr. Salud is the author of 3 other books, a collection of short fiction titled The Distance of Rhymes and Other Tragedies, and 2 collections of political essays, namely Blood Republic and The Chief is in the House. He is a columnist for Likas News, Philippines, and contributing writer for Philstar Life. He currently sits as chair of the Writers in Prison Committee of the Philippine Pen. Please welcome the author, Mr. Joel Pablo Salud.
Hi, I'm Joel Pablo Salud. I'm an editor, a journalist, and an author of several books of fiction and non-fiction. I'm also a columnist. And I'm coming out with a new book, iJournalist and Other Newsroom Introspections. It's a non-fiction book that tells of journalism and journalists, who and what we are, and how we relate to events and personalities that we cover. It's available in, I think, Lazada and Shopee, and it's published by the UP Press and UP Mass Communications book series. And I hope you would support Filipino authors. Thank you. Virtuous Impatience, What Our Country Needs in this Fast-Changing World,
a collection of essays by Ernesto M. Pernia. Dr. Pernia is Professor Emeritus of Economics at UP and former Secretary of Socioeconomic Planning at NEDA. He obtained his highest degree from the University of California, Berkeley on a Ford Foundation scholarship. He received his first award as Outstanding Young Scientist from the National Academy of Science and Technology. He was chosen by the PAASE for 2015 Co-Science Lectureship Award and inducted into its Hall of Honor in April 2018. Dr. Pernia has authored several books, book chapters, and articles in national and international journals. Let's welcome the author, Dr. Ernesto Pernia.
I am Ernesto Pernia, Professor Emeritus of Economics, UP, and former Secretary of Socioeconomic Planning, NEDA. I coined nearly a decade ago the phrase virtuous impatience, also known as sense of urgency. It is quite meaningful and relevant. A sense of urgency seems rather wanting in our ethos, resulting in delays and missed opportunities. Note, for instance, how we, led by the government, have dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic that has kept us hostage for well over a year now, compared with our ASEAN neighbors, currently in a much better situation. Opportunity costs accumulate over time to huge amounts of foregone benefits. Our economies rank the most among ASEAN countries in 2020 and may continue to contract in the first quarter this year. I hope you'll find my book interesting and instructive, with implications not only for our society, but also for personal well-being. Thank you.
In the Womb of the Earth and Other Stories by Alice Tan Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez received several writing grants in Hiligaynon from the Cultural Center of the Philippines in the early 1990s. In 2014, she received the Carlos Palanca Hall of Fame Award for her entries in the Maikling Kwento sa Hiligaynon. She has a PhD in English Studies Creative Writing from UP Diliman. Dr. Gonzalez has found a home in the Humanities Division, College of Arts and Sciences, UP Visayas, where she began teaching in 1982. UPV has all this time recognized her and supported her writing in Hiligaynon, for which she is forever grateful. Let's all welcome Dr. Alice Tan Gonzalez.
I'm Alice Tan Gonzalez. My home cities are Bacolod and Iloilo. When I started writing in 1988, I chose to write in Hiligaynon, the lingua franca of West Visayas. I made this region the romping ground of my imaginings, the region's people, traditions, history, beliefs, the world of my fiction. My first book sa Tagoangkan Sanduta, Iban Pangasugalanon, was published in 2009. Wanting to make this book available to non-Hiligaynon readers, I dared translate it into English. So here it is now, in the Womb of the Earth and Other Stories. If you want to partake of the West Visayan literary flavors, perhaps in much the same way that you would want to taste our batchoy, biskotcho, biyaya, and pancit molo, I offer you my book for the reading. Salamat, kid.
Fix or It Didn't Happen and Actual Stories by Ana Felicia Sanchez. Professor Sanchez is the author of another UP Press title, How to Pacify a Distraught Infant, published in 2017. Some of her stories have won prizes in the Free Press and Palanca Literary Awards. An alumna of the UP, Siliman, and Iligan National Writers Workshops, she teaches at the DECL of UP, Diliman, and is currently an associate of the Likhaan UP Institute of Creative Writing. Please welcome the author, Professor Ana Felicia Sanchez.
Hi, I'm Ana Felicia Sanchez. My book is Fix or It Didn't Happen and Actual Stories. Through the short stories in this collection, I wanted to make sense of people's actions, emotions, and decisions as they navigated their respective communities in search of better lives, whatever that might mean to them. And this book became a tribute to friendship, love, college life, and mental health. So I hope you check it out.
Our next title is Busilak, New LGBT Poetry from the Philippines, edited by J. Neil Garcia. Dr. Garcia teaches creative writing and comparative literature at UP Diliman and serves as director of the UP Press and fellow for poetry at the Institute of Creative Writing. He is the author and editor of far too many books for me to mention. Currently, he is director for the Philippines of Project Global Grace, Global Gender and Cultures of Equality, a worldwide research and arts consortium sponsored by the Research Councils of the United Kingdom and Goldsmiths University of London. Please welcome the editor, Dr. J. Neil Garcia.
It was such a pleasure and a joy organizing the first National LGBTQ Writers Workshop in which the poets in this anthology participated and from which their respective poetry suites were sourced. It was equally such a pleasure and a joy editing this anthology, arguably the first of its kind, that presents to readers an extraordinary sampling of the queer creative texts being written by young Filipino poets coming from across the country. I hope to have provided the beginnings of a new critical frame, post-colonial, post-confessional, and queer, within which to respectfully and properly appreciate these texts. Allow me to thank the International Consortium Global Gender and Cultures of Equality, cited in Goldsmiths University of London, which funded the workshop, and the Likaan UP Institute of Creative Writing, which selected Busilak, new LGBTQ poetry from the Philippines, to be part of its Philippine Writers series.
Our next title is The Godfatherers, poems by Noli Manaig. Noli Manaig is a poet and filmmaker. He holds a degree in English Studies from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. His poetry in English received the second prize at the 2014 Don Carlos Palanca Awards. His entry to the Cultural Center of the Philippines Gawad Alternativo for 2019 won first prize for Best Experimental Film. Next, we have We Bury the Landscape by Christine Ong Muslim. Miss Muslim is the author of 9 books and co-editor of 2 anthologies. Widely anthologized, her short stories have appeared in Conjunctions, Days Digital, Tin House, and World Literature Today. She grew up and continues to live in a mountainous rural town in Maguindanao. Please welcome Miss Christine Ong Muslim.
Hello, Christine Ong Muslim here. I wrote We Bury the Landscape, a collection of 100 mini stories about what I think 100 pieces of art, mostly paintings, were about. The book was first published by an American small press in 2012 and was taught in a couple of schools like Wake Forest University. Importance of the work, I suppose this kind of work has a value as it helps us to imagine better, to express absence in terms that make us wish or not wish for its presence. Maybe you like it, maybe you won't, and that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Geography Retcon, poems by Paulo Manalo. Paulo Manalo obtained his PhD in creative writing from the University of St. Andrews. His debut poetry collection, Geography, in 2003, was a recipient of the Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Award for Poetry and the UP Diliman Gawad Chancellor para sa natatanging likha ng sining. This was followed by the poetry pamphlet E is for Epal in 2018. He teaches English literature and creative writing at UP Diliman. Ang susunod na akda ay Oroboro at iba pang abiso ni Tilde Acuña. Nasa proseso at taga-proseso si Tilde, tagasulat at kasapwat ng tagabasa. Nagtuturo bilang Arvin Acuña ng mga kurso hinggil sa araling Rizal, Panitikan, Kulturang Popular, Malikaing Pagsulat sa Departamento ng Filipino at Panitikan ng Pilipinas sa UP Diliman, kung saan siya ay nagtapos ng MA Araling Panlipunan. Malugod namin ipinakikilala ang author, Professor Tilde Acuña.
Hello sa lahat. Ako si Tilde, guro sa Filipino Department ng UP Diliman. So, itong gusto kong ipakilala itong Proboro at iba pang abiso. Una ko siyang libro, collection siya ng maiikling kwento, no, na interconnected siyang short stories na pwedeng basahin individually ng standalone. Pwede rin basahin bilang bahagi ng isang buong context. Yung uniting theme sa kanya, situated yung mga kwento sa Pilipinas 100 years from now, hati na yung Pilipinas sa Filipino Norte tsaka Pinasur, mas nakafocus yung mga kwento sa Filipino fascist na Filipino Norte, tas implied yung na socialist na yung Pinasur. So yun, kung interested kayo, sana makakuha kayong kopya. Yun lang. Salamat.
Ang susunod na libro ay ang Topografiya ng Lumbay, Imus Novel 6 ni R.M. Topacio Aplaon. Ang Topografiya ng Lumbay ay ika-6 sa 7 nobelang bubuo ng tinawag niyang Imus Novels. Ang una niyang aklat, Lila ang kulay ng pamamaalam, na ikatlo at sentro ng Imus Novels, ay nailathala din ng UP Press noong 2015. Sunod namang inilimbag noong 2018 ang ika-5 sa 7 nobela, ang muling nangaharana ang Dapit Hapon. Narito ang author, si Ginoong R.M. Topacio Aplaon.
R.M. Topacio Aplaon, Imusenyo, Novelista. Kung isipin, subjektibo naman palagi pagtingin sa isang bagay, lalo na kung diwa at kakanyahan yung tutumboy mo sa ang Topografiya ng Lumbay, pinabahagi na 7 mga nobelang bubuo sa mga nobelang ng Imus. Pagpapatuloy siya ng pagtataka kung maintindihan yung kamatayan mula sa diskurso ng Lumbay. At mula dito, yung mula sa kapatagan ng trahedya, ng panglimari magtawalang balanse ng lipunan. Katulad ng mga ibang mga nobelang sinulat ko ng bunga ng buwan ng saliksik at pagsausaw ng versyon. Siguro mas naunawaan ko mga basikong representasyon ng mga natural at artificial na tambok ng isang geografiya o lugar para mas lumabas ito sa sadyang pagkasimboliko lamang at maging mas makatao yung pagpupumilit na maintindihan yung kamatayan. Siyempre, yung buhay na din. Maaaring payak sa unang tingin pero ganun yung pagtingin ko sa ika-6 na nobela.
Next on our list is the title Abinako, or So I Thought, by Joanna Lynn Cruz. Dr. Cruz is the Palanca Award-winning author of Women Loving, the first sole author collection of lesbian-themed stories in the Philippines, which is now available as an ebook titled Women on Fire. She is Associate Professor of Creative Writing at the UP Mindanao. She's received several Philippine Writing Fellowships and an International Writing Residency from the Writers Immersion and Cultural Exchange Program. She holds a PhD from RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia. Let's welcome the author, Dr. Joanna Lynn Cruz.
I am Joanna Lynn Cruz, author of the memoir Abinako, or So I Thought, which revolves around my first 10 years of rebuilding my life in Davao City. I think you should read my book because it's the first book of lesbian nonfiction published in the Philippines. Aside from the content, which seeks to bring to light my experiences as a lesbian, I also tried to demonstrate this identity in the way that I wrote it. But you don't have to be queer to appreciate it. If you're compelled by narratives about starting over, second chances, leaps of faith, you will definitely find something that resonates in this book.
Sa kanto ng Makabud at Mangga, may eskwela ni Vladimir B. Gonzales. Si Dr. Gonzales ay manunulat, tagasalin, photographer, guro, at kasalukuyang tagapangulo ng Departamento ng Filipino at Panitikan ng Pilipinas sa UP Diliman. Siya ay nagtuturo ng malikhaing pagsulat, panitikan at kulturang popular. May mga nauna siyang libro sa UP Press, makatala ng isang superfan, poetry at fanfiction, at lab, mga dulang adaptasyon at iba pang laro para sa mga klaseng panlaboratorio. Malugod namin ipinapakikilala sa inyo ang author na si Vladimir Gonzales.
Magandang araw sa lahat. Ako po si Vlad Gonzales at ang librong kasama sa Paglulunsad ngayong araw ay ito po, Sa Kanto ng Makabud at Mangga, May Eskwela. Koleksyon po ito ng iba't ibang mga klase ng akda, may kwento, may dula, may sanaysay na pinag-iisipan ng iba't ibang pagtatagpo. Mga intersection kumbaga, madalas tungkol sa queer identity, pero nagtatagpo po sa usapin ng mga uri, pag-iisip sa hinaharap, pag-iisip sa buhay lungsod, pagiging middle class at iba pa. So kung kayo ay fan ng BL, anything queer, pag-umuni mo ito po sa self-identity, pagsisigla nito. Baka ito po ang libro makakatulong ninyo sa inyong paglalaman. So maraming salamat at sana po ay mabasa ninyo ang libro ito.
Our next two books, Nocturnal at Iba Pang Dulang Pampelikula and Salvador Javier at Iba Pang Dula, are both by the recently deceased author, Lito Casahe. Besides being a multi-awarded playwright and screenwriter, Lito was an optometrist, professor, actor, director, painter, and producer. Professor Casahe earned his Master of Arts in Creative Writing degree from UP Diliman. He co-founded Dramatis Personae, a theater events multimedia company with multi-awarded playwright and Harvard-trained economist banker Bienvenido M. Noriega in 1989. He was DP's president and artistic director and a faculty member of the Literature Department, College of Liberal Arts of DLSU in Manila. He was a recipient of awards, citations, and grants from the Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature, Experimental Cinema of the Philippines, Cultural Center of the Philippines, National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Manila Critics Circle, Catholic Mass Media Awards, Film Academy of the Philippines, and the University of Exeter Student Drama Playwrights Festival. To represent the author, please welcome his sister, Nanette Casahe Chua.
Hello everyone. First of all, I am very grateful to be part of this annual mass book launch entitled Paglulunsad 2020. I am Nanette Casahe Chua, sister of the late Lito Casahe. According to my brother, words indeed have wings. It is in our literature, our stories, where we best mirror our humanity. He was a quiet and simple person. Writing is his voice. His views, concerns, and advocacies were all expressed in his books. Para sa dalawang aklat, Nocturnal at Salvador Javier. To the University of the Philippine Press, maraming salamat po.
With that, we bring this event to a close. Congratulations and thank you to our authors, editors, and contributors. Thank you too to all of you out there who joined us during this online event. The titles launched this afternoon and other UP Press titles are available on our online stores, the UP Press website, Lazada, and Shopee. The links can be seen on your screen. Please follow our social media accounts for more updates. I hope to see you during the next launch, and I hope that launch need no longer be virtual. Stay safe, everyone. Keep reading.